Knights, of course, who have risen back into the Championship this year after a gap of a few years and a few worrying years as well, really. So this year, Craig just expects consolidation in the Championship. So thanks to everyone for those views. Really good to get a picture on, 4 of the teams. We hope that more of the fans of other teams get in touch as well as the year goes along. Right, let's recap what we predicted when we did our predictions show, which we recorded a week ago. People can still go to our iTunes page or our Spreaker page and see previous episodes where they'll get to dig into that predictions episode. But we'll just recap what we talked about for the Championship, Alan. So promoted from the Championship to the Super League, 71% of the listeners voted for Toronto to be promoted. Then in second place, a distant second place, was Widnes with 16%. Bradford and Toulouse had 7% and 4% respectively. No one else got more than one vote to get promoted. You and me, we both went for the Toronto Wolfpack to achieve the promised land. Our friend Sarah, she went with Widnes, as much in hope as expectation, and we know that she's not a huge fan of Toronto raiding the Super League. And Tim went for Toronto as well. So 3/4 of us went for Toronto, similar to 3/4-ish almost of the overall listener base. So yeah, we will dig into that, I guess, a little bit more when you give your 1 to 14.
Yeah, sure.
Relegated from the. Sorry.
No, go on.
No, you were going to say something.
No, I was going to run through my 14, but I've jumped the gun. No, we'll go through the relegation candidates first.
Yeah, so 60% of the vote, obviously with relegation there's 2 go down, so everyone's percentages are going to be slightly higher because they had double the chance of being picked by the listeners, but 60% thought Swinton would be a team relegated, and 59% thought Rochdale. So those two who finished in the bottom 2 of the Championship last year are the favourites to finish in those same positions this year. Barrow with 32%, Sheffield with 20%, and Dewsbury with 19%, with the closest on their tails. You, for what it's worth, went with Rochdale and Barrow, so 2 of that top 5, or top most likely 5, I suppose, from the listener's point of view. I went with Rochdale and Sheffield, so similarly, popular choices across the board. Sarah went with Swinton and Barrow, and Tim went with Rochdale and a little bit of an outside, a little bit of an upset candidate maybe, Batley. So go back and listen to the predictions show to hear our full justifications around that. Only 7 sides, Al, received votes for being promoted to Super League, whereas 9 sides received votes to be relegated down to League One. The 2 sides that got votes in both categories were Bradford and Lee.
There you go. I think that says something about the number of potential candidates to kind of get into the playoffs, and it kind of talks about the potentially the split in the league, doesn't it?
Yeah, which we experienced last year too.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting to see if there is actually a chasm as there was last year. But yeah, I mean, I think even in my most pessimistic hat on, I wouldn't expect us to get relegated this year. But God, who can tell?
And I wonder if the Lee vote came when things were still a bit more uncertain about the Centurions, whereas now they have the full backing of the might of St Helens' squad. So we shall see.
We'll see.
Before we get into your 1 to 14 rundown, Al, and we'll go through all the teams then at that stage and give our kind of views, and you'll justify your picks. I'll break them down a bit. We'll see where we get to.
All right.
We're going to go through some top 5 predictions we had in from the listeners first of all. So Windsor Wolf, at Windsor_Wolf on Twitter, said Toronto, Toulouse, Bradford, Widnes and Lee would be the teams he expects to finish in the top 5. Genghis Campbell said, at Genghis Campbell, said Toronto, Widnes, Bradford, Halifax and Lee. So fairly similar, just no Toulouse in Genghis's predictions, which is a bit of a surprise. Darts, at Mitchell Darts, went Toronto, Toulouse, Widnes, Bradford, Lee. The Wakey White, at Wakey White, said Toronto, Widnes, Toulouse, Halifax and Bradford. Carson Broomer, at Swiss_Cowboy_78. Is there definitely a second underscore? I've never read the second underscore out before. Carsten said Toronto witnessed Toulouse, Halifax, and a bit of an outsider here, the York City Knights. The Trieste, is that how we pronounce that?
Trieste, something like that.
Anyway, French for 13, innit?
I'm butchering it, yeah.
Toronto, Toulouse, Widnes, Halifax, and I'm sure Alan Walker will get in touch and tell us to stop saying foreign words. Toronto, Toulouse, Widnes, Halifax, and Bradford. Anyway, the Trieste has gone for. And Paul Michael Craig at Paul Mac _78 went with Toronto, Toulouse, Bradford, Widnes, and Halifax. What you'll note from that is only 7 clubs came through all of those predictions as being top 5 clubs. So that matches what we got for people who were expected to get promoted as well. Only 7 clubs, and it was the same 7 clubs who made up that, with York, Bradford, with York, Halifax, and Leigh getting smaller votes than the ones that the 4 that we mentioned before, but still those 7 clubs. So it's going to be interesting to see, Al, if those 7 clubs make up your top 7 in the table.
Okay, so yeah. Well, let's start at the top.
Okay.
And we'll go with. See, I was going to say Bradford then, and then I thought no, I won't. I don't have us in first. I really don't. So I have Toronto finishing first.
Okay.
I have to go on.
Look, they won it last year, didn't they? So
yeah. I think the numbers speak for themselves. I think they've recruited really well. They're certainly investing. Let's put it that way. And you've got to have the rose tinted glasses you can ever see to see any other team finishing above them in the league. Anyway.
If they're thin in any position, maybe the back 3 a little thin, or do you not think they're thin anywhere really?
Well, they're not really thin anywhere. That's the trouble with them. I can't really. I mean, they've spent big. They've got they've signed NRL quality players, whether you rate Latelli or not. He is a championship winning player.
He won the NRL, didn't he? 2 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago now.
You can't really argue with the quality. Wilkin is an established performer at this level. He's a good signing. I don't know whether they are thin anywhere actually, but at the same time, I think if I looked at our back 5, for example, I think our back 5 is probably the equal of Toronto's. But yeah, we'll get on to Bradford in a bit. I've got Toulouse. Go on.
No, I'm going to say I agree with you. Obviously, the one thing with Toronto that other clubs don't face is that Toronto basically don't have a home game in Toronto until the end of April. They have their 3 on the road home games before that, but they do come home with a wet home sale of 4 home games in a row to finish out the regular season to kind of balance that out. So it will be interesting to see. But of course, with a training base in the northwest, they're not going to be too hard pressed to have kind of had that good camp and had that togetherness in this country.
No, I mean, I think it's just one of those things. If you look at the weather over there at the moment, it's minus whatever it is. I think we'll be that's the structure of the season. If we're kicking off at the end of January, beginning of February, then they're going to have to play games on the road to start with. That's just the way that it's going to have to be, whichever the division they're in. So they'll get used to it, and so I don't really see that being a particular hindrance either way, to be honest with you.
Okay, well, we're agreed anyway, and everyone picked Toronto as well in the top 5s that we got in, and 71% think they're going to win the grand final too. Do you think they'll go on to win the grand final? Stick your neck out? Or am I spoiling things?
I think they probably will. I think they'll learn the lessons, but it's going to be one of those. I think it'll be tense. It'll be a tense match, in terms of in terms of what happened to them last time. So yeah.
Venue to be announced, of course. It'll be back to a neutral venue, we believe, and it still will be called the £1 Million Game. Am I right in thinking I read that in one of the papers over the weekend? But yeah, who've you got second then, Al?
I've got Toulouse finishing second, in common with quite a few actual. If you look at the top fives, quite a few people have picked Toulouse second. They've retained some of their key talent, haven't they, with Corella and with Ford. Exciting
and across
team.
the board, Curran as well.
Yeah.
The two wingers have re-signed. The talented hooker, and the coach as well. So yeah, great point. They've retained all that made them great last year, pretty much.
Yeah, and I think they're the not only are they Brian's choice, I think they're the hipster choice for this year. I think that's where all the cool kids are going to be down supporting Toulouse. So yeah, I think they'll do a similar job to last year. As I said, they've kept enough of the spine of the team together. So Toulouse second for me. In third, I've got Widnes. I think obviously I probably wouldn't have put them this high if they hadn't kept the two centres, to be honest with you. I think they're two great players, and obviously Gelling can entertain as we've seen today on the pitch and off the pitch. So to me, I mean, I wouldn't expect them to bounce straight back. I think they've lost too many players, but I just have them finishing just above us. So I think we'll finish fourth. But yeah, anything you want to say about Widnes?
Well, obviously it's a young squad.
Yeah.
Mostly overall it's a young squad. It's a squad that should know each other pretty well. There are a few kind of experienced players in that starting pack that I think will be great. Tangata knows the Championship inside and out. Harrison Hansen has done a good job in the Championship as well as the Super League. Cahill will be the captain, won't he, next year? And I think he's going to totally lead by example. And I do think the striking, look, if we're talking about the back three in Super League, yeah, they're not good enough, but we're not talking about the back three in Super League. We're talking about them in a division where Matty Dawson, what's his name, can go like better than a try game. So we're talking about in a competition where they're probably going to have more chances. So Ince, Owens, who else? Buckley. I think they've got tries in that back, in actual back, obviously. I think they've got tries in those outside backs. The centres are great, like you said. So I do expect Widnes to finish in the top five. What I would say is Widnes have got a real tough start for this young side, with a few parts having to be brought in, and a new coach and a new philosophy and a new mentality. They start with Halifax on the road, then Toulouse and Toronto Halifax at home, then Toulouse and Toronto on the road. I was penciled in to go to the Widnes Halifax game on Sunday, but I've got a meeting now that I need to go to on Sunday afternoon. So my promise is to Halifax and Widnes fans is that I'm going to put some money through their sides' turnstiles later in the season and go to watch a home game at both of those two grounds for those sides. But yeah, that's a tough start. It's a tough first 3 games for Kieran Purtill. So I don't know about. They're definitely going to finish in the top 5. Outside of those top 2 you've given, I could not really predict for certain, but yeah, third or fourth sounds reasonable for Widnes, so I agree. And then fourth, you've got your Bradford Bulls. So come on, let's chat about the Bradford Bulls.
Why? I think, as I think I mentioned before, I think our back 5 is probably the equal of anyone in this division. I can't believe you didn't put Webster on the most exciting signing list.
Well, it doesn't count as I meant a signing who was outside of the competitions last year, so someone signed him from down under. I maybe didn't word the poll very well, but tell you what, when we talk about it, not many people cared to think about it that way either, because not many people are that thrilled about a 36-year-old rocking up in the Championship.
Well, I am. Sorry, and I know Rob agrees with me, but to me, yes, he might be. So
your back five. Let's just address this, because your back 5 is going to be what? Fullback Brandon Pickersgill?
Probably Pickersgill, yeah, who was absolutely brilliant last year.
Ethan Ryan, Jake Webster, Ash Gibson, and Jai Hitchcock. who
Yep.
I think as a three-quarter line, Pickersgill is a little bit of a question mark over because it's a level that is not really shone at yet, but those other ones, certainly Ethan Ryan was good in the year that he went down as a real young kid, and the other three, yeah,